President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the chamber gives the floor to the defense counsel. And first, the floor is given to the defense counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put questions to the witness. You may now proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I would like to start with following up something that you said this morning about the day of your arrest. You said that it was 16 June 1977, and that you were very certain of that particular date. The prosecutor asked you a question to elaborate why you were so certain. I would like to try again. Why are you very certain that it was the 16th of June 1977?
I worked in the union, and I remember the date that happened when I worked there, and I can still remember it until now.
If I'm correctly, it's also exactly one day after your birthday. Is that maybe a reason that you remembered it so clearly, or is there another reason that you remember it so clearly?
No, it's not. It's nothing to do with that. The date is in my mind, so I remember it clearly.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. You were brought in on the 16th of June 77. After how many days or hours were you interrogated? Do you remember?
They interrogated me once, and it lasted about 30 minutes.
And did it happen the next day, 17 June or 18 June 77? Do you remember?
Immediately when I arrived, they did not interrogate me. They simply shackled me, and 2 or 3 days later that they interrogated me.
And after asking questions for about half an hour, they were done, and then you were sent back to your cell. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What about your wife? Do you know whether she was interrogated the same day as you were?
Your questions seem to be repetitious. As I told you that my wife and I could not know about what happened to each other because we were placed separately.
I understand, but maybe your wife at the time told you afterwards when she was interrogated. So that's why I was asking that question. But your answer is that you do not really know, correct?
No, I did not know.
once you had been interviewed, interrogated, what happened next? Were you put to work immediately, or were you detained for a while first?
After the interrogation, I was not sent to work immediately. I was put to the original place and stayed there for a while.
Let me read to you what you told the investigators of the investigating judge, E3/5172, English ERN 002722588, Khmer 001892555, and French 007272595. You told the investigators the following. As for me, while I was imprisoned there during the 2 years, I never broke the rules. After they had interrogated me, I had been imprisoned for about a month when they put me in chains in the cell and did not let me out to pull grass outside. 2 or 3 months later, they stopped keeping me in chains and let me sleep normally because I had not carried out any activities. Is that what you recall now as well? You were imprisoned for a month, and then 2 or 3 months later they stopped keeping you in chains. Is that correct?
The re-education school discipline was that they banned us from fleeing and from doing anything against the instruction. And for me, I never did anything against the instruction.
Let me ask it differently. When were you instructed to start working on the compound of Okanseng Re-Education School? When were you officially out of the chains?
I did not remember the exact date, but what I remembered was that after I was interrogated, I was placed to stay for a while, and then a while later, which I did not know how many months later, I was sent to grow vegetable and potato during daytime, and at night time I was sent back to the detention cell.
Did you have roughly the same schedule as your wife? In other words, was she released from the chains about the same time as you were?
For the women group, they were not placed at the Okanseng detention. Only the men group who were placed there, and women were placed in a different building from men, and the men all were chained.
I understand, but at one point in time you were instructed to work, to plant potatoes, etc., within the compound. When you started working within the compound, was that about the same time as your wife started working in the compound?
បាទសូមជម្រាបថាផ្នែកនារីមាន
For the women's group, they receive more leniency than the men's group because the women's group were not chained and shackled. They were allowed to remove grass within the compounds of the prison.
Now I will get back to asking you some more questions about working, etc. At the compound, but let me now turn to the time that you said you saw those Jarai people through the cracks of the house where you were detained. How many months into your detention, how many months or how many weeks or days did you see those Jarai after 16 June 77? In other words, you arrived 16 June 77. When was it that you saw those Jarai?
I did not think about the exact date and time at that time, and I did not know how many days after I arrived at the prison that the Jarai people were sent to the prison.
I understand that it's difficult to remember how many days exactly, but was it about the same day or one day later that you had arrived, or was it much later, many months later, that you saw them? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I understand. It was about 1 month later that the Jarai tribemen were sent to my prison.
I will return to the Jarai shortly. Let me first go back to your questioning. You told the prosecution that you were asked questions about certain methods used at the plantation. Were you also asked questions about any activities of Yoon within the plantation?
My answer is still the same. They did not ask me any other question. They simply accused me of using the feudalist class techniques, not the techniques from the farmers class, and that's why I was brought into the re-education center school.
Your former wife also gave testimony. She also spoke to the investigators of the investigating judge. That is E3/9357. In question and answer 4, she said the following, and I will read it to you. They called me, or us, to be interrogated one by one. They questioned me, where is your birth village? And they pressed me on whether I had communicated with the Yoon. I still answered the same things, that I had not communicated with the Yoon. Did your former wife at the time tell you that she was asked questions about communication with Yoon?
បាទអត់
No, she did not. I did not know about what kind of questions they interrogated her, and I never asked her about those matters either.
But just to be sure, having read this excerpt from her statement, doesn't ring a bell with you that you were asked questions about communications with Yoon as well, correct?
As I told you, your question is repetitious. They did not ask me about the yuan. They simply asked me about the technique I use for the treatment of the rubber tree.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, I would like to show the witness a document that he doesn't know, but it contains some names in it. That's why I would like to show it to him. It is document E3/240. It's only 2 pages. The Khmer pages are 00001266 till 67, and French 0028255051, and English 00897667 and 8.
President, the chamber gives the floor to Judge Lawen.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. For purposes of clarification, can you tell us whether this is an S-21 confession?
No, Judge Lavergne. It's a telegram sent on the 15th of June 1977 by V. It is unclear to whom the telegram was sent, but it is partially about a group of Jarai being arrested in the northeast zone. So that's the document that I would like to show to the witness.
Mr. President, we have no objection to the document being shown to the witness, but just with respect to counsel's comment that it's not clear who it's addressed to, it is copied amongst others to Uncle Nguyen, Brother Vaughan, and Brother Q, just for the record.
I have no objection to that remark. So, Mr. President, am I allowed to show that document?
President, yes, your request is granted.
Mr. Witness, if you had a chance to have a first glance at this document, I would actually like to ask you a question about something which I believe is on the second page, under point 2. I will read it to you in English, and then you can read the Khmer version at the same time. It says the following. It is decided that Comrade T takes secret measures to take out the contemptible persons borrowing within rubber and cotton plantations, as well as mobile units who had been taken from the military since 1974. The networks include 1. Certain networks of contemptible Sona, who is in contact with the contemptible Cheng Heng and In Tam. 2. Those from Stung Treng. 3. Network of Lang, who is in contact with the contemptible Q from Hanoi. 4. Network of the contemptible Tai. 5. Networks implicated by the contemptible Lu from 107. My question, Mr. Witness, is particularly directed at point 3, the network of Lang, who is in contact with the contemptible Q from Hanoi. Does the name Lang mean anything to you?
What you just read is not understood to me because I was not involved at all in this.
I understand perfectly well that you have no knowledge of this particular document, but my question was whether you ever heard of a person named Lang under 3, under paragraph 3.
No, I was not familiar with the name of the person, Lon.
And the second name in that third line, Q from Hanoi. Have you ever heard the name Q from Hanoi?
I never heard the name of the person Kao either. I never heard the name of the person named Lon and Kao.
Did you know at the time, in 1975-76, who the leader of the Northeast Zone was?
I did not think about the structure at the regional and the sectoral and the zone level at that time because I was just thinking about my work.
Have you ever heard of the name Ya, Comrade Ya, or his real name, Nay Saran?
Yes, I heard the name Ya, but I never met him. I heard only his name, but I did not know where that Ya stayed at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Let me now return to what you just said. You believe it was about a month after your arrest that you saw the group of Jarai in the compound of Okanseng. Is that correct?
បាទអានឹងវាជារឿងពិត
Yes, that is correct.
And when was it exactly that you saw in the jackfruit plantation pits with decomposing bodies and belongings or clothes which might have been belonging to the Jarai? When was that?
I saw them when I worked in the jackfruit plantation.
But when was it that you started working at the jackfruit plantation?
When I was allowed to work outside the prison compound, after I removed the grass in the prison compound, I was sent to the jackfruit plantation to guard the jackfruit plantation, defending it from being intruded by outsiders who had the intention to steal fruit from the plantation.
Let me ask a different question. How long after you saw the Jarai on the compound of Okanseng did you see the decomposing bodies in the jackfruit plantation? What was the time difference between you seeing the Jarai at Okanseng and you seeing decomposing bodies in the jackfruit plantation?
Based on my estimate, it was about 1 week from each other.
Can you explain to me how that would be possible in the light of your answer that you had been in prison for about a month in chains, and then they stopped keeping you in chains for 2 or 3 months, and a little bit later in that same answer that only near liberation in 79 they let me sleep outside the detention cell unchained and not locked in from the outside. I'm not quite sure if I understand how it's possible that you saw those decomposing bodies already a month and a week after your arrest. Can you explain that to me?
When I witnessed the Jarai disembarking from the truck and sent away 4 or 5 days later, and about 1 week later I went to the jackfruit plantation and I saw those staffed.
The document that I showed you, although I realize you have no knowledge of that document, states that a group of roughly 209 Vietnamese soldiers, including a lot of Charai, were arrested at around June 14. I'm not sure if it's correct, but that could have been the same group of Jarai that you are speaking about. If that is correct, I'm not sure if I understand how it was possible for you to see them so quickly after your arrest, because you were still in chains.
I think your question is repetitive again. I told you that I saw from the gates of the fence. The building in Okansaing prison were not made from concrete, but they were made from bamboo. And we could see things in the compound through the gates of the wall.
Let me ask you differently. Is it possible that you saw decomposing bodies in the jackfruit plantation much, much later, maybe even at the end of 1978?
I did not remember the exact year, but what I remembered was that after the Jarai was disembarked from the truck, and then about 1 week later, they were sent out. And when I was sent to work at the jackfruit plantation, I saw clothes and bags stained with blood.
Did you ever hear guards speak about guns and rifles and pistols and grenades being found among those Jarai who you saw?
No, I did not hear about that.
Let me now turn to another subject. Is you at one point being, as you said, trusted by the people in Okanseng. When exactly was it that you were trusted by the Okanseng security people? When did they tell that to you?
They did not tell me, but it was from what I observed. As I told you, they trusted me because I did not do anything against what they told me. I did not do anything, and because I did not do anything against the regulations of the re-education school, that was why I was allowed to stay outside the cell.
I understand, outside the cell, but still within the compound of Okanseng. Is that correct?
Okansang is a name, and the detention is the location within the Okansang compound.
Is my understanding correct that the Okanseng compound was about 200 meters by 200 meters? About, let's say, 2 football fields, 2.5 football fields?
I did not know the size, and the fence was made from bamboo trees, but I would not be in a position to tell you the dimension of the compound.
At one point, you were not shackled anymore. You were allowed to work on the compound. How long did you work on the compound before you were allowed to work 2 kilometers outside of the compound at the jackfruit plantation?
I did not know how long. After I was unchained, I was allowed to work inside the compound for a while, and after that I was allowed to work outside the compound, that is to plant potato and to get the jackfruit plantation.
When exactly was that? When, or roughly, when was it that you were allowed to work outside the compound?
I cannot recall the date. After I was allowed to work within the compound and I gained trust from them, then they allowed me to work outside the compound.
What kind of work did you do outside the compound?
Your question is rather repetitive. I just said I removed the grass with my bare hand and I worked in the plantation.
Did your work also involve guarding of the plantation?
After I removed the grass at the potato plantation and then we planted corn in the field, and after that I was assigned to get the jackfruit plantation.
And I'm interested in this specific task, the guarding of the jackfruit plantation. How many months after your arrest did that happen? Did that start?
I did not know how many months. That was when the jackfruit was about to get ripe. I was placed to guard there in order to prevent people from going into the plantation and picked those jackfruits.
When does the jackfruit get ripe? Do you know? Mr. Witness, in Ratanakiri, when does the jackfruit get ripe?
I'm sorry that I laughed at your question. The jackfruits got ripe after the fruits got old and usually or mature enough, and usually that happened during the dry season.
Thank you. When exactly in the dry season? But February, March, April?
The jackfruits got ripe in February and March.
So, was it then that you saw for the first time decomposing bodies?
I cannot tell you exactly when. However, it happened at a time that the jackfruits became rather solid and almost get ripe, and that's when I saw the dirt cracked open at the former bomb crater.
So would that be around Khmer New Year?
The Khmer New Year did not fall in February or March. It actually fell actually on the 13th of April of the year.
I know, Mr. Witness. So you said the jackfruit was really ripe when you saw those decomposing bodies. Would that have been around 15, 16 April 78, around Khmer New Year?
I cannot recall exactly when. What I know is that when I was assigned to catch the jackfruit plantation, the dirt on top of the crater cracked open, and I concluded that the bodies were buried underneath.
Would it be fair for me to conclude that you saw decomposing bodies about 7 or 8 months after your arrest? Maybe 9?
No, not 7 or 8 months after my arrest. As I testified earlier, about a month after my detention, those people were arrested, and about a week later they were taken away. And later on, when I was assigned to guard the jackfruit plantation, I saw the dirt cracked opened.
Now let's stay at the jackfruit plantation. This morning you said you saw some people being killed while you were guarding the jackfruit plantation. Is that correct?
Yes, I did see that.
How many did you see? How many people were killed at the jackfruit plantation?
There were 2.
I'm asking you this question because in your WRI on Khmer page 001892554, English 00272587, and French 00272595. You say, I personally saw one division prisoner being carried away by 2 guards and then being struck with a hoe, splitting open his skull. So, is it 1 or is it 2 people that you saw being killed?
Two people were carried away. One was dead, and the other one was alive. And this latter one was later on killed with a hoe.
But in your original statement, you don't speak about a second person. You only speak about one division prisoner. I'm not quite sure if I understand. Is it 2 people, of which one was already dead, and then the second person you saw being killed, or was it only one person that you saw being killed?
One person was being killed, that is the one who was still alive.
How did you know that the person that was being carried away and then struck with a hoe was a division prisoner.
From the look, that is the clothing that he wore, I realized that he was a division prisoner.
Can you explain that to me? Was he wearing a military uniform?
No, it was not a uniform. In fact, the decomposing body that I saw was half naked, as he only wore his pants and he was shirtless.
That is, I think, the second person that you speak about. But you said you also saw someone being killed, and you seem to have said that this was a division prisoner. When this person was being killed, was he wearing something like a military uniform?
The executioners wore only shorts. And in fact, the two prisoners were carried at the time.
My question is why you testified to the investigators that you saw a division prisoner being killed. What made you conclude that it was a division prisoner who was killed in front of your eyes?
I do not understand your question about a division soldier or something. This morning I testified that the person who was asked to make a biography, and later on, because the biography was not consistent, he was tortured with a plier on his thigh.
I'm not sure if we're not mixing up things, so let me step back a little bit. Mr. Witness, this morning in answering a question from the prosecution, you spoke about multiple persons being killed at the jackfruit plantation. I asked you how many, you said 2. Then I confronted you with your statement in which you speak about the killing of only one person. But this person in your statement you describe as a division prisoner being carried away by 2 guards and then struck with a hoe, splitting open his skull. He was stuffed into a trench in the jackfruit plantation. Now my question to you is, what made you conclude at the time or now that that person you described in your WRI was a division prisoner?
I made the conclusion that the person was a division prisoner because he wore a sword, and the sword was a military sword. Although I did not know where he actually came from, I made my own conclusion that he was a division prisoner.
Why a prisoner? What made you conclude that he was a prisoner?
Your question is asking me why I concluded that a person was a prisoner because all the people who were detained at the security center or the education center were all prisoners or detainees, and the two people were actually carried out from the education center.
But the jackfruit plantation was about 2 kilometers away from Okanseng. Maybe you saw him before. Maybe you had seen him in one of the houses being shackled or something, or maybe you saw him working at Okanseng. But you don't seem to be saying this. So I'm trying to find out why you're saying that he was a Okanseng prisoner.
The security guards who carried the prisoners were the Okanseng Security Center, so there was no doubt that they were the Okanseng prisoners.
And the fact that it was a division person was only based on his shorts. Is that correct?
Yes, the shorts were military shorts.
And what were the names of the security people from Okanseng who were involved in this?
I do not recall their names. I cannot recall the names of those guards, in particular the names of the guards who carried the prisoners.
But it wasn't Tin or Nok. Is that correct?
No, if it was them, then I knew.
Are these the only two names of security guards at Okanseng that you knew or that you remember?
Yes.
Can you explain to me again how you knew that the people who were involved in this killing were also security guards at Okanseng?
Because I recognized their faces as they guarded the compound.
What about the other person who you said was already dead? Was he also a division prisoner according to your conclusion?
Yes, both of them were carried away by the guards.
But my question was whether he was also a division prisoner. In other words, did he have the same clothes as the person that you saw being killed?
There was one person who wore shorts.
What did the other one wear?
The other person was carried naked.
But then how did you conclude that that other person must have been a division prisoner as well?
I made my own conclusion that they were division prisoners because in that house they were the former division soldiers and they were sent there, that is to the re-education center.
But I'm still not quite sure, Mr. Witness. Had you seen either one of them, in the prison before, or were they unknown to you?
When I entered the compounds, the two had already been shackled there and parts of their bodies were swollen.
But when was that you saw that then?
I saw them when I was taken into the center and shackled. However, they were housed in a separate building, that is, they were housed in a building to the east, while I was being held in the building to the west. However, I could see gaps in the walls.
Okay, maybe I will revisit this topic tomorrow, Mr. Witness. Let me now go to the incident of Tin. You didn't see Tin kill a person, but he asked you to bury the person. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did you know that he was an ethnic tribesman who had snuck away to find food to eat from a villager's house, quote unquote? How did you know? Who told you this?
I knew through people that I met.
And who are they?
They were the villagers.
But when did the villagers tell you this?
The villagers did not tell me, but if they were union workers, then I would know them. Because I knew union workers. However, the person was a villager from the village.
But he was detained at Okanseng, correct?
Yes, he was detained at Okanseng, and when he was allowed to work outside the compound, he ran away to find food from a nearby village.
And when was it that Tin saw this person?
They didn't see him running away, but after they did the head counting, one person was missing. So then they deployed their forces to surround the re-education center. And by about noontime, he walked back into the center, and that's when he was fatally shot.
Do you know why he would walk back into the security center?
I did not answer that question, but I knew that he was running back to the security center when he was fatally shot.
And why was it that Tin asked you to bury the body?
After he was shot dead, Tin called me to go to help bury the body.
And did Tin tell you why he shot this person?
Of course, the security guards did not have to report to the prisoners, and because the person was accused of making a mistake, that's why he was killed.
What was Tin's authority within Okon Seng, do you know?
Tin was a security guard.
And who instructed Tin to shoot this person? And who instructed Tin to ask you to bury this prisoner, do you know?
I did not know about that or about any order for Tin to shoot or for him to ask me to bury the body, and I only knew that Tin gave me the order to help bury the dead body.
And what about those unknown Okon Seng people who shot those two, who killed those two division prisoners? Do you know if they got their instructions from someone?
That is the internal arrangement of the re-education center, and I would have no clue about it.
I was moving to the gallbladder situation, but I will do that tomorrow with your leave, Mr. President.
President, thank you, Council. It's now convenient time for the adjournment. The Chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow, that is Thursday, 3rd March 2016, starting at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, the Chamber continues to hear testimony of Pon Tol and begins hearing another witness, that is through TCW 867. And Mr. Pon Tol, the hearing of your testimony as a witness has not yet concluded, and you are therefore invited to come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Court officer, in collaboration with Visu, please make necessary transport arrangement to send the witness to where he is staying and invite him back to the courtroom tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Security personnel are instructed to bring Kilspon and Nuchie back to the detention facility and have them returned to the courtroom tomorrow morning before 9 o'clock. The court is now adjourned.